I've got two ideas. One I've got a lot of notes for, but I'm not sure it's as strong as another idea. But look, I have from
Just choose an idea and do it.
all right.
Yeah, this isn't the last ever episode. A little bit of a housekeeping thing, Tim.
Oh yeah.
I still want to keep secret the big Patreon surprise that we've been working on behind the scenes because I still haven't quite figured out how to announce it. But I've had another idea.
Right.
But for reasons that can only be explained by the fact I do the Unmade podcast with you, I was doing a lot of research about Michael Bolton last night.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. And it turns out he has a Patreon, which I found interesting in of itself.
Sorry, just to clarify, he doesn't have a Patreon like for a cause or like it's just for him, for his career.
Just,
like
I think
I'll make
so, yeah.
music. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's where his career's got to now. We can't exactly sit here throwing rocks at people who use Patreon to make their career, of course, because we do it. But
No, there's nothing wrong with it. Of course, if we were signed to a major label record label and, a major label and had sold, 30 million copies, we may not have a Patreon support. I don't know. Maybe we will.
Well, Michael Bolton does. And you can read what some of the... He's got like different tiers. So for $5 a month, you can be a sole provider.
Oh, cool. Yep.
And for $15 a month, you get time, love, and tenderness.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. Here are some of the benefits you get if you're a sole provider. They use MB instead of Michael Bolton all the time, which I find cute.
Yeah.
What happens if you're a sole provider, you get direct messaging with MB, music content from MB, social videos and photos from MB, polls to participate in MB's projects, quotes and jokes from MB, Q&A with MB. That's not more, there's a whole bunch of other stuff you get, but the one that got me in particular was quotes and jokes with MB.
Right, yes.
And I'm wondering whether or not on our Patreon we should introduce a new benefit, which are quotes and jokes with BH and TH. Would you be willing to supply like occasional quotes for our Patreon?
Yes. Like, do you mean like wise sayings, like axioms?
Well, this is exactly it. Surely anything Michael Bolton says is a quote from Michael Bolton.
Well, that's right.
Yeah.
All he has to say is, "No, I'm not providing a quote today," and they'll put that up.
Yeah,
That's a quote from Michael Bolton.
Like, what sort of quotes? Like, could you pass those tissues, please?
That's
Like, Michael Bolton, 2020. So I think we're going to make this a new Patreon perk on the Unmade podcast. Patreon.com/UnmadeFM. Occasional quotes and jokes from BH and TH.
Oh, yes, totally.
You quite like dropping the occasional, word of wisdom or pithy observation on the old Twitter. So,
oh yes,
save some of your better ones for the Patreon supporters.
Well, I'm very wise, as you know, and
Yeah.
but here I am throwing it out like pearls before swine on Twitter for free.
Who are you calling swine? You're calling all your followers swine.
Well, yeah, no, but that in itself was a quote. But it's just one of the many that I've got up my sleeve, in my quiver, ready.
I don't think you can quote pearls before swine as yours.
No, it's not mine. No. I was citing Jesus, I think, at that point. I only steal from the best. So, can I just say, why haven't I known about this Michael Bolton Patreon? This is good value. I mean,
Tim, I think we should sort of throttle back how much promotion we give for Michael Bolton's Patreon and throttle up how much exposure we give to ours. Like, we're going to have the good quotes. We're going to out-quote Michael Bolton.
I'll probably use a lot of Michael Bolton's material in my quotes, I just have to say.
How can you be our Patreon supporters when we can't be friends?
That's right. I feel like it's going... It is a bit hypocritical, isn't it? So how can we be lovers if we can't be friends? However, you can be a Patreon supporter, which is... It's like, I'm not going to go out with you anymore, but if you click on this website, you can give me money every month and maybe I'll keep the relationship going.
He has been cleverer than us with the naming of his tiers, saying, like, being able to say, I'm a sole provider for Michael Bolton's quite good.
Yes.
What could we call our tiers to give them better names? Because, you can be like a $1 supporter and a $5 dollar or whatever. Like, we need to come up with some tier names.
We do actually, yeah, because people give a variety, don't they? I was really interested in that. You could be, like a Tommy Ball member, and
A sofa shop customer.
Sofa shop customer. Yeah, that's.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a pretty low level because it has such broad appeal. Everyone wants to be a sofa shop customer.
So you could be a sofa shop customer, a Tommy Ball player.
Yeah. The very highest, of course, is something you can't buy, which is the Unmade kernel. That's an honour, which is like a Hall of Fame we've bestowed. We talked about that.
Yeah,
but that's a different kind.
You can't buy that.
No,
Yeah, there's no.
I mean, you can offer. You can offer. I mean,
we're open. We're open to offers.
Yeah, that's right.
It's an honour you can't buy or make us an offer. By the way, I now have the stamp, the wax seal stamp for making the certificates, and I've ordered the certificates.
Oh,
like
wow.
I've had like really posh ones printed on like lovely paper, lovely cards. So the first one to Zach will be going out soon. I was thinking about how one becomes an Unmade kernel, by the way, and I think we need a process in place.
Like a committee.
Yeah, I was thinking should be the process. You have to be nominated by a Patreon supporter. Mm-hmm. You have to be seconded by another Patreon supporter. Mm-hmm. And then you have to be elected unanimously by Tim and Brady.
Oh, yes. That sounds like a good process.
You think?
Oh, yeah. No, that's very robust. Yep. Very good.
All right. All right. That's now the official process after... that was easy.
The seal. Are you going to share a photo of the seal? Because it's incredibly official looking. I mean, very...
You were very excited by it.
Oh, yes. Well... It really does look something that, like what Julius Caesar would have used personally. It is very impressive. It's gold,
except with Tim's face on it. Yeah,
indeed. That's right. Yes, yeah. I was very impressed with it, and with the wax, the red wax that comes with it to melt and then stamp. Yeah, no, very impressive.
You were very taken by it. You were like, "Can I have one?"
Well. What level of support do you need to get a free seal?
I don't. I mean, you're a co-host and you don't even get one, so it must be pretty hard. It's your face.
I'm pretty incidental to the whole proceedings, though. I mean, there's other people far further up the pecking order, like Tall Jeff, Joe. Some of these people.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Tall Jeff's got one.
Oh, right. It's far more important to the show than I am. That's for sure. Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, I don't think we should have multiple copies of the seal floating around though, because like it needs to be like, because basically I think I should keep it, and like when I die, it gets like broken, like the Pope's ring.
Oh, that's very wise. Yes. No, that again, that's another good process. That's very clear, very robust. Yeah. No, we can't. You can't risk that being out there and people having counterfeits, creating. Exactly. Unmade kernels willy-nilly.
No, they could be kernels everywhere. We can't have that. It'll be like KFC.
That's right, every suburb. That's just.
So I think that was everything. So start thinking about quotes. We'll put quotes on the Patreon page. Do you think I need to make them like nice JPEGs, like with like nice, with nice writing around them and decoration?
Yes.
I think they need to be like downloadable. Yes. Printable. You can print them out and frame them.
Yes.
I'll make them printable. Quotes from Tim.
Yeah, well, no, that's wise. And I've already got an idea for the first one, but I'll hold on to that. So stay tuned.
You keep it. You
wise.
Make sure you jot it down. I don't want you to forget it.
Oh, I won't forget it. It's written on my heart.
No. Ouch.
I also have a little bit of catch up. Have you finished with your catch up?
Oh, yes. Yeah, go ahead. Wow.
Well, I just wanted to say that today, two very excited young ladies went shopping for stationery, and one of them went all out. They both went to Typo as a highest priority, Typo being their favoured store for the classy young ladies' stationery.
Okay.
And picked up a couple of things there. And
what kind of things are we talking? Just basic like pens and things, or
yeah, there was a clear pen and a pen holder that's like shaped like a sloth. That looks quite cute.
How was the budget being kept? Were you like keeping like a document on your phone so you knew who had spent how much, or You were keeping receipts?
Well, we were separate. I was there with one, and my wife was with the other that came later, and so it was a sort of a more mental arithmetic. But some It was not hard because it wasn't like supermarket sweep where she came rushing through with a trolley just throwing things in, and then it was very careful, slow walking, choosing.
Right.
And in the end, though, the passion was there for some even more official stationery. So we headed off to Officeworks, which is sort of like a proper stationery office place.
Yeah, like a sort of a Staples type place, that is.
That's right. And a whiteboard was purchased, a very classy whiteboard. Yep.
We wouldn't have expected that.
I know. It's semi-furniture, really, isn't it? But that's going on the wall and some whiteboard markers. And there was a bit of a strange time where we needed to get a magnetic whiteboard eraser, that you want to be able to stick that to the whiteboard, when you're not using it. But the ones there were very small and it didn't seem like the magnet was very strong, but that was in plastic and the whiteboard was in plastic. So we couldn't know if the magnet wasn't working because it wasn't working or whether it wasn't working because of 2 layers of plastic. So in the end, we did a bit of a covert ripping of the plastic, knowing, okay, we're going to buy these, so we're within our rights to rip the plastic in the store.
So this is the temporary plastic, just sealing it before it's purchased.
No, that's right.
Maybe that was
the wrapping.
Was that affecting the magnetism?
Yeah. So we sort of, ripped. I know ripping things out of their packaging in the store is never usually allowed unless you're desperate for an iced coffee while you're doing the shopping at the supermarket. But so the magnet
that's in the Australian Constitution.
That's right. Yeah. They should hand them out as you walk in with the trolley. But so that all worked. So taken home, very, very.
So without the plastic, the magnet was strong enough.
It was. I can see it wearing off in time, but I promised that there would be just a little bit left in the budget to come and replace the magnet in time.
There was no blowing of the budget though. It was kept under. So did they split the cost of the whiteboard between them, or was that just in one of the girls' budgets?
No, this is just one of the girls, and the other one is holding back her ammunition for another day. She shopped very sparingly.
Did I not mention the time limit?
Oh, right.
It actually expired earlier today.
Well, that is unfortunate. Yeah. No, there was some mental arithmetic noting that we, kept around about the budget. I mean, I wasn't going to mind if they went over the budget, but for the sake of the exercise, I was like, oh, where are we up to now, And then when we got home, there was some big, long receipts and calculator action happening just to really make sure things are being monitored carefully and written down on the whiteboard. So that's great. Yeah.
Nice.
Very impressive.
It was well earned. So... Well done. I'm very pleased to hear it.
Yeah,
exciting times. Stationery shopping. I've told you before when I was young, like very young, my dream job when I grew up was to work in a stationery shop.
Yeah. Do you have a particular favourite bit of stationery? Like, are you a sucker for pens or you a real stapler man?
I like a notepad.
Oh, right. Yep.
I like a good notepad.
Have you ever converted over to the American yellow notepad, or are you a white man still?
No. I don't go for the yellow paper. It's just not my bag.
Right, okay.
Oh, look, I shouldn't be wasting a quote like that. That should be going straight on the Patreon.
That is. Do you know what a stationery shop is? Walking around today, I realised, when you go to the supermarket and there's all the things you got to buy, and then when you get to the checkout, there's a few tempting items that are just there for a last-minute impulse purchase. An entire stationery shop is just impulse items. Like, every aisle is just jam-packed full of things that you go, oh, I'll just grab one of those, and we could do with one of those, and you can always have a spare one of those, and that looks pretty cool. And so you actually end up with a big pile of stuff you didn't need. But
I mean, you don't need envelopes with dog print on them.
No,
but why not?
Yeah.
You don't need little tiny stickers of stars.
No, you don't need them. No. But they're maybe that could be a quote too. You don't need little stickers with stars because it just sort of sounds a little bit like
I mean, we're in dire danger here of thinking every single thing that comes out of our mouths should be a quote. In fact, that should be a quote.
That should be a quote. We're in dire need of thinking.
Not everything has to be a quote. Brady Haran, 2020.
You're so wise. I was.
Thank you. Tim Hine, 2020.
You're so wise.
All right. We're going to do the show? We're going to actually have some ideas?
Okay, well, let's start recording. Yep, this is...
All right. Unfortunately for the listeners, we started recording a good 15 minutes ago. I've got a cracker of an idea. You're going to love it. And I've got a Patreon idea from a Patreon supporter that you're also going to love.
Oh, that makes me feel a lot better about the episode as a whole.
My idea is a cracking idea for a podcast. I don't know if it's a cracking idea for the Unmade podcast for talking about. I don't know how well we're going to talk about it, but it is just a genuinely good idea for a show. And, and you'd think, oh, that's a good show. Good idea. NPR would make that.
Well, can I just say, it's been a while since we've had one of those. So go for it.
Yeah. All right, you're gonna throw me under the bus now. After I've said that, you're gonna immediately make me defend it.
Come on, then.
My idea is called The Room Where It Happened. And let me first just deal with a little bit of zeitgeisty stuff first. I, of all people, am very, very aware of the Hamilton song, The Room Where It Happens. I'm a huge Hamilton fan. I've seen the musical many, many times. This song is one of the highlights of the show, a show of many highlights. For those of you who don't know, the song The Room Where It Happens in the musical Hamilton is about this thing called the Compromise of 1790, when Alexander Hamilton, Thomas Jefferson and James Madison, they had a few meetings, but they had one meeting in particular, which I think was at Thomas Jefferson's house in the dining room, and it's where they did the negotiating and the deal-making that resulted in the American financial system being set up and the national government taking over state debt. And in exchange for that, it was agreed where the national capital, the District of Columbia, was going to be put. So it was this famous meeting behind closed doors, wheeling and dealing. And in the musical, the character Aaron Burr is sort of lamenting that he's not part of this. He wants to be in the room where it happens. Now, also... I'm also aware that a political figure named John Bolton in the US, who I'm very familiar with, is one of a former Trump lackey, has also just released a book called The Room Where It Happened. He got a bit of flack for pinching the name of the Hamilton song. So I'll just say at the start, I'm aware of these two things.
Sorry, can I just interrupt for one moment there to say, firstly, I'm aware of the Hamilton phenomena and that your love for it. I also have several. I'm not aware of it. I've not seen it. It's not come to Australia. I haven't been overseas to see it since it's been released. Yep. I have several friends who are absolute Hamilton aficionados who love it, who have not seen the musical. They're in Adelaide too, but they've read biographies, and we're on a WhatsApp group about other things, and they forever inserting Hamilton information. And it's right. I have to say, I feel like it's one of those things where I feel like I never want to see it simply for that fact, but I know you've raved about it, and so anyway.
It's about to be released on Disney Plus on July 4. The whole world can watch it now without having to go and fork out a whole bunch of money for tickets. So I don't know if you've got Disney Plus, but if you do, you can watch it from July 4.
And this is the original cast, like it's not
it's a recording of the original cast.
All right, okay. Well, stage. I may check it out, and then we might talk about it again. But anyway, that's not your main point.
All right. That's not my main point.
No,
I have not. This idea has nothing to do with Hamilton or the John Bolton book, and they didn't even influence the thinking of it. I will tell you what did influence the thinking of it before I tell you what the actual idea is, and that was in episode 50. When you were talking about your idea, which was involved seeing movies twice and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
You told two anecdotes. One of them, which I don't think you realised at the time, but quite amused me. One was about you and I deciding to go and see Dumb and Dumber a second time. And as you told the story, you talked about how we discussed it over a McDonald's. We were sitting in McDonald's at the time.
Yes.
And then 15 minutes later, you told another story about Johnny Mnemonic, and it involved you standing in the queue at Hungry Jack's.
All right.
and it suddenly occurred to me, all these stories in Tim's life are so often located in fast food restaurants.
That's not fair.
It's recorded. It's there. You go back and listen to the record. So anyway, I was just having a chuckle to myself about that. Of course, who am I to speak? I was with you for most of these stories.
Oh, that's right. Yes, indeed.
We were probably there at my request. You'd probably driven us to McDonald's at my insistence. So I'm not judging.
I put down my salad and said, "Oh gosh, all right, come on, let's go."
All right, I'm going to drive over the other side of town and pick up Brady and drive him to McDonald's.
I was Uber Eats in our relationship years before there was Uber Eats.
Oh, I feel like I should have had like a little bell that I could just ring whenever I wanted Tim to come and pick me up and take me to McDonald's. I did. It was called a telephone.
That's right.
So anyway, that got me thinking, like, you know, all these stories that we remember and things that happen in life are so often like we remember where we were when it happened. What room were we in? Where were we sitting? What cinema was I in? So I was thinking a really good podcast, The Room Where It Happened, would be about, you know, incidents and things that have happened in history, but putting more focus on the place it happened, the geography, the room, the layout of the room, the history of that room, what's happened to it since. Obviously, this lends itself more to indoor locations and rooms, but I guess it's pretty adaptable. I'll throw a few examples at you. One really obvious example I'm going to try and say without you going off on one of your tangents, which is going to be really difficult. I wish I should put a temporary Tim Torment ban on here.
Right.
Because
It'll make it worth my while. Come on. What are you offering up? How much for the girls? More stationery.
How much would a stronger magnet be on that eraser?
$4. All right.
I'll very, very briefly mention, hopefully, there's this thing in Australia called the Kirribilli Agreement, which was an informal agreement between Bob Hawke and Paul Keating, the Treasurer and the Prime Minister of Australia, where Bob Hawke, the Prime Minister, said, after a couple of terms, I will relinquish the reins and let you take over. It was like a gentleman's agreement to transfer power. And then it was kind of reneged on a bit and it caused a falling out between the two of them. And it's called the Kirribilli Agreement because it happened at Kirribilli House, the Prime Minister's residence in Australia. And there is actually a sort of a similar agreement that happened in the UK, which is called the Grenita Pact, which was an agreement between Tony Blair and Gordon Brown before they were in power, before the Labour Party was in power. They made an agreement that Tony Blair would run for Prime Minister, would run for leader, and Gordon Brown would take, you know, a back seat and be the Chancellor of the Exchequer, which is like the Treasurer, and have lots of power. And then after a while, they would swap. And this was called the Grenita. This was also reneged on famously. There's a bit of a theme here, isn't there? Anyway, this was called the Grenita Pact because it supposedly happened in a restaurant in Islington in London called Grenita. There's actually some debate now as to where it actually happened and whether or not it did happen there, but it's still called the Grenita Pact. And I think that would be a good example for this podcast. What is Grenita? What kind of restaurant was it? Where was it? What did it look like? I've read a little bit about it. It's actually gone out of business now. It shut in 2003 and it became a Tex-Mex restaurant called Desperados.
Which is very apt name.
Yeah, Desperados moved later and now this building, this room where it happened, is actually an estate agent. It's a real estate agent. So, you know, I think it would be fun telling the story of this room where this famous thing happened. What was it? What did it look like? What's happened since? There are lots of a few other obvious examples, you know, places where people died. Elvis Presley famously died, you know, in the bathroom, didn't he? Marilyn Monroe in her bedroom. The room in the schoolbook depository where Lee Harvey Oswald fired the bullet at JFK. Rooms where war has been declared or surrender treaties have been signed. All these famous things that sometimes happen in quite unexpected places. In fact, one that springs to mind is the Royal Society, where I do a lot of work, and where you came and visited when you were in London. We went to the Royal Society together, is in this building called Carlton House Terrace. And the Royal Society's premises there, actually, before they moved in, was the Nazi embassy before World War II.
Oh, right.
It was actually in that building when Britain declared war that someone was sent with an envelope, like a British lackey was sent there with an envelope and went up the staircase and left the declaration of war outside the the quarters of the German ambassador in London, and he left. And then I think an hour or so later, they realised they'd made a typo. So they rewrote the declaration of war, and he sneaked back in, and the envelope was still there, and he swapped the envelopes over and put the envelope there with the correct wording for the declaration of war.
No, that's great. That's fantastic.
So anyway, the room where it happened, I think, would be fertile ground for podcasting. And wouldn't it be even better if each episode was recorded in that room?
Oh, no, that's gold. Yes, that's very good. I like this. I like this a lot. There's lots I could say about this. This is a very, very good idea.
I imagine where albums have been written and recorded would be one that you would love, obviously, where famous movie scenes have been filmed.
Yeah, I love this. Yeah. In fact, I love thinking about it and knowing that and thinking about the spaces and where they are and what happened in them. And like to visit them. It's funny, just a little. I know you made a comment that I would go on and on about the Prime Minister thing at Kirribilli, but
yes.
A classic. I will add one little comment to that, which is just because it's fitting with your idea. That I remember years later, after the Prime Ministership, or later after the Kirribilli Agreement, there was Paul Keating, who then became Prime Minister, was being interviewed regarding this whole scenario and other matters in a documentary, and he was being asked about it, and he talked about his perspective on what happened, and it was asked, and where did it happen, and he said, well, as a matter of fact, it happened in the room that I'm being interviewed in right now. Basically, it happened right here, and I thought that was great. Yeah, years later, talking
amazing.
about it in the very room where it happened. Yeah, that's
nice.
great.
What are some... I mean, obviously, the room where C.S. Lewis wrote his books would be a room of interest to you, and you've been in that room.
No. Oh, well, I've been in his home, but...
where did he write?
He may have written a little bit at home. I think he wrote in both places. He certainly had a desk and an office at home that I've sat at. But he also had rooms at Magdalen College at Oxford. He would often stay in those rooms and do a lot of his work there. That's where students would come. And you can't get into those because another professor is in there now. And so you can't just into...
When has that stopped you before?
Well, I know. I did try, but I was there in the summer and it was all locked up and so forth. But I got as close as I could and stood under the window and checked a door, but no, big old oak doors at Oxford. They were a bit hard to knock down, but it would be lovely. Yes.
Is there a particular room you'd like to get into?
I may have mentioned this before, but I would love to go to Hansa Studios in Berlin.
Yeah.
Which is where a lot of and I know you've been there, haven't you?
I have. Yes, I have. Funnily enough, yeah. I haven't got quite the appreciation for it you have, but yeah.
Well, I only want to go there because you've been there. It's the room where you've been, and I like to have been everywhere you've been.
You like to go into every room I've been in, yeah? Keep checking off the list.
That's right. After McDonald's and Hungry Jack's, now Hansa Studios. Well, because Achtung Baby was made there, and because a bunch of Nick Cave albums were made there, and a lot of Bowie's trilogy was made there, and so it's a great studio. Studios are a very distinct room. Like Abbey Road is the big room in Abbey Road is where all the Beatles made their albums, but they're uniquely celebrated as a room where something special happens. A lot of these other things just happen to be, like the book depository room obviously wasn't sacred ground for a variety of other reasons, and Lee Harvey Oswald happened to choose it for that purpose. It just happens to be a room. But
that tickles me more, Tim. That tickles me more. It's like, I love the idea of some room that was never destined for greatness suddenly having greatness thrust upon it. Like the ordinariness of it is what is so delicious to me. Who would have thought, this was where this nothing place where they just stored books would become one of the most infamous locations in history. It's incredible. I love that.
I'll tell you a room I'd love to go into. I'd love to go into the apartment in the Dakota building where I think Yoko Ono still lives, but where John Lennon and Yoko Ono lived. That's a pretty... famous. I mean, you can't get into the Dakota, and you certainly even millionaires who want to buy and move in, the strata, the owners don't let. They're very choosy.
Yeah.
They won't just let some billionaire buy it or anything. You've got to be a particular kind of person. But so I'd love to go into their apartment. There's a photo of them in that apartment that I really kind of love. It's a 70s photo. Obviously, it's a 70s photo because he died in 1980. But yeah, that's a room. That's their apartment, their kitchen and areas. I'd love to go in there.
Yeah, I think two of the rooms that I would most have dreamed to have gone into, I went into on the same day.
Oh yeah,
and that was the original Mission Control.
Oh,
from the Apollo era, where Gene Kranz and all the likes were dealing with all the, the moon landings and Apollo 13 and all that. You see it depicted in films so many times. You can go in there, and I got to sit at, the flight controller's desk and pretend for a few seconds that I was important. That was pretty cool. That's kind of almost like a bit of a museum piece now, that room.
Yeah.
But it's still, it looked like you'd imagine it would look. That was pretty amazing. And nearby, but deep underground and very secure, is the room where all the Apollo moon rocks are stored from all the Apollo missions, including Apollo 11 and the famous Genesis rock from Apollo 15 and whatnot. And getting to go into that room and be with those precious objects, like, especially precious to someone like me who's a total Apollo nerd. That was pretty amazing too. I mean, that's less of a room. Like, Mission Control was very much a room where it happened.
Yeah, yeah.
The moon rock storage room is less a room where it happened, but a lot of research on the rocks has been done there since. And so,
would you rather go to the Oval Office or to the White House Situation Room? Or let me add a third in.
Yep.
A secret bunker we assume is there well underground, but is never acknowledged.
I mean, they acknowledge there's a bunker for emergencies.
Well, indeed, but they don't say, "Look, here it is." Like that.
yeah. Here's how you get to it.
Yeah. But that would be rarer, is what I'm sort of pointing to. Not many people get to go there.
If you'd asked me during another 4-year period, the answer would be a no-brainer, and it probably still is the same answer, and that is the Oval Office. Just because it's so famous. And I've seen it so many times in reality and depicted. I would like to know what it feels like to stand in the real one, just to fit what it smells like and how probably smells like cheeseburgers at the moment, but what it smells like and how big it feels and what the atmosphere and what effect it has on your body. So that's why I would choose the White House over the more secret places, because although the secret places maybe have slightly more exclusivity and bragging rights, the famousness of the Oval Office has a draw to me.
Yeah.
What would you choose of those three?
I guess one assumes it would be the Oval Office, but there would be something cool about being having to have gone to the Situation Room, the genuine Situation Room, but not the Oval Office. Like it would be that would be an interesting thing to say, because a lot of journalists get hoarded into the Oval Office, take a photo, and off you go again.
Yeah.
And every intern and every loads of people go in and watch addresses and things like that. So it's a much visited room, but the Situation Room's a little bit different, and yet it's kind of infamous as well. It's where some of the bigger decisions are truly made. So yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
that's a great idea. The rooms.
Thank you. I told you it was a good one.
It was a good one. Strong idea.
Not a barrel of laughs, but it clearly a good show. Like I was telling my wife the idea this morning, and she was like, "Oh yeah, that's actually a pretty good idea." In fact, it's such a good idea. I'm sure. She always resents the good ideas, but I'm sure it. I'm sure such a thing already exists. It would also. It would be let's be honest, it would be an even better television program or video series. But that's not what we're here for.
To the history of the room, I like the idea of the rooms that change over time. This was something, and now it's gone. Now there's a hotel there instead, and this has changed. And I like that idea of going to the space where something happened. I was watching a film last night. I was watching When Harry Met Sally. I was noting the places in the film where they were that I've been, and thought, oh yeah, right, I've stood there, and I didn't realise it, and they stood there when they made the movie. And so that sense of just specific place that's funny to have had in common with history, and you have no idea.
So Margaret Thatcher, the former British Prime Minister, stayed in a suite at the Ritz Hotel in London from 2012 until her death, and she may have died in the suite she was staying in, I think.
Right.
I wonder what they do with that suite now. Like, is that now, I obviously it's not roped off and it doesn't become like, off limits. So obviously that's a suite you could stay in, like, Margaret Thatcher's suite at the Ritz.
Yeah, it could have one of those little blue plaques or something there.
I hope they wouldn't do that.
I guess people die all the time in hotels, but when it's a person who's known for being there, if that becomes their residence, it sounds pretty cool, doesn't it? I know this happens talking of the White House, in the West Wing, Leo McGarry has to move out of his house, and sadly his marriage sort of ends, but he just moves into a hotel, and that does sound pretty cool, doesn't it? This is like, oh yeah, I'm just going to live in this fancy hotel. And
living in a hotel.
That's where I live.
Jose Mourinho, when he was manager of Manchester United, the whole time he lived in Manchester, he just lived in a hotel. I don't know what I think about the idea of living in a hotel. Yeah, maybe it would be cool. I think it must become different to staying at a hotel. I mean, it must get to a point where you kind of make the space your own. And it's not like, they're not like, replacing they're not putting like a mint on the pillow every night and stuff like that anymore, hopefully.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
he's also not coming home with a bag full of groceries and like stocking the fridge and, you know what I mean? Like going, oh, geez, I need to do the vacuuming. It's some sort of surreal in-between place that you don't have to think or care about, but is, clean every day and expensive, I guess.
But hopefully you don't have room service every night, or, because there is some things about staying in hotels.
Like you're just ordering a steak sandwich at 10 o'clock every night watching TV like you do when you're a special getaway holiday or something,
Hanging your breakfast order over on that thing on the door saying, I want cornflakes and, yogurt.
Have you ever stayed in a place where someone comes in and opens the curtains for you? In films like with royalty, like silver service, like, good morning, Mr. Harron. It's looking a lovely day out there today.
I have stayed in a few posh places where that kind of stuff happens a bit more. And like I remember on our honeymoon, we stayed in a really posh place on safari where while you were still in bed in the morning, they'd bring you in like a hot drink and put it down next to you and stuff like that. And,
my mum did that. There's nothing too radical about that.
It was. That's what I was talking about, actually. That's where I was staying.
On safari.
Tim's house.
In Adelaide.
Yeah. All right, well...
Very good idea.
I'm sure we could talk more about the room where it happened. I'm sure more will spring to mind. Actually, go onto our subreddit, people, and I'll link to the Reddit from this episode. Tell us about any rooms you'd really love to visit, or even better, any amazing rooms you have visited. So have you got an idea?
All right. My comfort song. My comfort song. This is different to your favourite song.
Right.
Or what you think is the best song. It's a song you put on for comfort. Now, if think of a moment that requires comfort, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're sad, although you could be, or, lost, or you could be, or scared, although you could be. I think of it as a song that I put on like in the middle of the night. So it's 2 a.m. in the morning and you wake up and, it's cold and so forth. And you just, I'll listen to something. I'll put something on that's, for that sort of...
Do people do that?
Oh, I do it all the time. Don't you do that?
Really? No.
Oh, just put something on that's like comforting and cozy and lovely to sort of, lay there and then go back to sleep.
So it'll send you to sleep, right?
Well, no, no, it's not a song to send you to sleep in like, well, it's going to be boring. This will send you to sleep, or it's...
But it might lower your anxiety levels.
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
This has arisen for me because I've recently adopted a new middle of the night song, and I think it's become this way because I first encountered it in that sort of early morning, still dark kind of time. And actually, I wasn't planning this, but it's from the scene in The West Wing again. Do you remember that scene in The West Wing, an episode called Somebody's Going to Emergency, Somebody's Going to Jail? And Sam and Leo arrive, or Leo arrives really, really deathly early to work in the morning. It's still dark, and he finds Sam, another character, asleep in his office.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those, no one's at work yet. The first person's arrived really early. Everything's still dark. A couple of people still vacuuming who are down the hall, overnight cleaners. But it's got this serene kind of thing. And the song's playing that lyric is taken from, which is New York Minute by Don Henley. And it's just perfect. It's like that perfect in the morning, lovely voice sort of song. And there's a lovely I just love that scene. It happens before the credits, and it's a beautiful little scene where that song is playing very, very strongly.
New York Minute by Don Henley. I know it.
So I often put that on in the middle of the night. In fact, if I wake up and, head off to the bathroom or something, I come back and go, I'll put that on now. That's just like, it feels the ambience of that kind of time of night really perfectly.
What do you do? Do you put headphones in, do you, and listen to it on with headphones?
I do, yeah.
Yeah.
I used to love playing music before, like 20 years ago, before I was married, but I'm not allowed to do that anymore. So I put a little earpod in one ear and listen to it, and it's marvelous.
Will you listen to the whole song? Will you normally fall asleep during the song, or?
I will normally fall asleep, in the first verse somewhere, like almost immediate.
Would you have fallen asleep if you hadn't put it on?
Yeah, well, I'm sure I would have, but it's enjoyable. It's like, it's not like, it's like, this is brilliant. Oh, cool, I'll put this in. This is nice. There we go.
Will you often listen to that song at other times, like, in the middle of the day, or is that normally the only time you find yourself listening to that song?
I listened to it for a few times when I first recalled it, but I have kind of kept it for that now. I won't listen to it at another time.
Do you have your phone or something set up in a special way that you can access it quickly? Like, how does that work? Like, you don't have to type in the name every time, or can you designate favourite songs in that way so you can get them playing really quickly?
I haven't with this one. Maybe I should. The phone's just sort of thrown on the floor, so you got to sort of, reach over for it and stuff. And you just sort of type it in and away we go. You got to be careful because you can't go too much typing because the white, the light will wake you up terribly. It's terrible. Yeah. But yeah, no, I find it pretty easy, but I do have to search.
You normally look at your phone long enough to send me a text.
Well, that's right. There's usually something there from you, because we're at opposite sides of the world.
Yeah.
Hey man, just putting on Don Henley. No.
What is again?
Kiss, kiss.
What are some other songs that have held the title of Tim's comfort song? Like, what was the previous title holder? You said you only just recently got back into New York Minute.
For many years, it was Secret Garden by Bruce Springsteen.
Oh, that's a nice song.
It's just a lovely...
I love that song.
Gentle song with a lovely, reassuring Bruce Springsteen, baritone, beautiful.
Can I seeing you brought up Bruce Springsteen, can I do a quick sort of Unmade podcast-related tangent relating to Bruce Springsteen?
All right. I'm bringing you back to this, though. Yes.
We will come back to this because I think it's a really interesting idea, Tim, so we will come back to it. But just quickly on Bruce Springsteen. You know how in a recent episode I talked about Do They Know It's Christmas, which was the charity song made in the UK. And then you mentioned how the US equivalent, which is We Are the World, was done, and you didn't like that as much.
No.
And that made me think, I want to watch We Are the World a few times and remind myself who's in it and how it went. So just yesterday I watched the music video of it a few times, and I actually think it is a pretty good song, and in terms of sounding. And they certainly had an all-star lineup. There's some huge names in it. And obviously this was at a time when Bruce Springsteen was at the absolute height of his popularity.
Oh, yeah.
And therefore they gave him a disproportionate amount of time in the song. And his singing in that song is a real lowlight of the song. It is the lowlight of the song. And if you watch it too, he sings and he looks exactly like he is terribly, terribly constipated.
Oh, no. He can look like he's in anguish sometimes.
It was almost parodying himself. I swear, constipation. You watch it, and you listen to it. You tell me that man is not constipated.
He often looks like he's in pain when he's really passionate. He does. There's some way that his mouth drops and he grunts. Oh,
I didn't buy it. Though. I didn't buy that he was feeling it.
No, really?
Because the nature of that song, they're all just standing around, pretty disinterested, and then they step up to the microphone, do one line, and step away. So it's not like he's spent all this time working himself up into this frenzy of emotional distress that finally it just seems artificial. It seems put on when you see it in that context. I'm sure if you watch him in a concert and he's performing for 2 hours, you can probably convince yourself that he has worked himself into this emotional state, but it just seemed put on because it's so temporary.
Ah, yes. After 2 hours, it feels he really is. We are the world, but now it's just I don't think we really are the world. Yeah. We're just he's very funny. Ben, the funny thing about the grunting of Bruce Springsteen is captured by Ben Stiller. He did a little clip called Counting with Bruce Springsteen.
Time for Counting with Bruce Springsteen.
I think I've seen that, yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Learning to count with. It's very, very funny.
Anyway, Bruce Springsteen's Secret Garden was the previous comfort song. Does that mean you would have put that on in the middle of the night as well?
Oh, yeah, no. That's a lovely song. Also, of course, we've spent a lot of time, and even in this episode, talking about Michael Bolton, who's out of the blue appeared into my life after so long and is perplexingly hanging around and he has made it on to, like, he's been properly downloaded onto the phone and he's there ready to go.
Yeah.
So he's
has but he's not a comfort. He's never had a comfort song.
I don't think I think I've played him for comfort. A series of them. I've certainly played him in the middle of the night. That's right.
I don't have comfort songs in the way you do to like decrease anxiety, but my consuming of music is different to some people's in a way that drives my wife crazy, that's for sure. And that is, there'll be something I'll like and I will just thrash it to death and listen to that and only that for months and months. So, for example, after being quite taken by Hamilton, I think at least half a year, if not longer, I just listened to the Hamilton soundtrack, like the original cast recording, over and over and over again, like, a couple of times a day. That's all I'll listen to, ridiculously. And then I'll just say, all right, done. And then something else will happen. At the moment, I'm listening to the songs from Moana quite a lot because I watched that recently. And funnily enough, also by Lin-Manuel Miranda. But I don't think that's the whole reason. But so I'm really into those songs at the moment. So I'll go out and walk the dog and just listen to 4 or 5 songs from that.
So you'll do it I'll do that for like a week on one thing and then move. But you're saying you stay for months and months going on.
Yeah, it'll be a really long time.
Wow.
But I wouldn't say I have comfort songs, but I do have comfort programs. I'm always really jealous of you because you always tell me about... I'm always jealous because you seem to have an incredible amount of time to watch movies and television shows that baffles me. But I'm also impressed that you watch different things. You say, I watched this movie and this TV show and that TV show, and today I'm watching this film. But I'm not like that. And if I have spare time, which I don't feel like I have a lot, but when I do... This is separate from watching things with my wife, by the way. At night, I will watch different programs with my wife. But if I have my own time to watch something, like I'm on a plane or I'm in a hotel or something like that.
Yeah.
And the world is my oyster now, because of the internet and streaming. I could literally watch anything that has ever been made. And yet I'll always go back and watch the Christmas episode of the UK Office.
Oh yeah, that's
just
awesome.
something I know that, and it's usually that it's either The Godfather 2, or the Christmas episode of the UK Office. Like so many times when I'm jet lagged and I've just arrived in America and I'm sitting in an Airbnb and I know I'm not going to sleep for the next 2 hours, I'll just get out my iPad and think, what will I watch? Anything in the world I can watch. I'll always just watch the Christmas episode of The Office.
That is so heartwarming, isn't it? It's got such a beautiful ending. Yeah, that's lovely. Yeah. I was thinking about this because you've made this comment before that you seem perplexed that I have an extraordinary amount of time to watch, because that is the entirely opposite situation to what I feel is my reality. But I was thinking about it, and I think it's to do with our time zone, because...
Yeah,
I get up and go to work and work all day and all the rest of it, and then come home and do the boot camp with the kids and life and all that kind of stuff. And then I sit down and then, watch something for an hour or 2 hours, or film or something like that at night time as like the last thing before, bed. But that's just when you're waking up. So that's like nothing, you're asleep the whole time at work. So I'm like, I'm watching this now. And you'd be like, you're waking up for the day, and it's like, Tim's already into the movies. And I'm like,
I'm not suggesting like, you're a slacker or don't work hard. I know you're a busy guy and have 2 jobs and you work a lot and have, millions of meetings. I do think though, you use the spare time you do have, you do use differently to me. Like if you have a spare hour at the end of the day, you will watch a film or a TV show. Whereas I'll kind of think, that's another hour of editing I could do.
Yeah, I'm done. I switch off. I finish Like
Yeah.
that's just like I go hard
Yeah.
and then I stop and I'm like, no, I need to do something pleasurable. And the fun, pleasurable thing is the thing I'm more likely to text you about. Like I'm not going to text you about a theology article during the day going, oh, you should.
Yeah, of course. I have to say comfort songs is a new idea to me, the idea of a comfort song.
Really? Wow. Well, in terms of obsessive songs, I have to say that around our place at the moment is something very addictive that the kids have only realised now where it comes from. So we have in the middle of our dining table a bunch of lemons, and for some reason, one of my daughters has taken upon like drawing little faces on them and putting them in different parts of the house, like amongst the toothbrushes and amongst the clothes and jumpers and all sorts of like hidden places that you don't expect, and suddenly there's a lemon. So
Right.
whenever I see one of these lemons, I break out into a song by U2, which has a very, very addictive line where Bono goes, lemon, in a very falsetto, what he calls his fat lady voice. These are sort of the big opera singer, lemon. And so I just say that over and over and over again and have for weeks. And they've just picked it up too. And so everyone says it around the house. And I suddenly realised, like, everyone's doing it. And then suddenly they're using it for other objects too. Like
Toothbrush!
just picking up things and saying it in this high falsetto voice. And so today I finally told them, I said, you realise that, like, I just put it on in the car. This is a song. And so I sang I played the U2 song from Zooropa, and they were just blown away. Like, what the heck is this song about a lemon? Like, that's amazing. So everyone's lemoning around the house at the moment, and you can hear it from different parts of the house from different people at different times. It's very funny. I came back to the car today, and it was like after being, leaving one of the daughters in there after going off to do an errand, and it was on. Like they'd gone looking for it to find it because they're really into
Oh, there you go.
So.
It's the new song. Middle of the night comfort songs. I am familiar with songs, to affect your mood. Like if you're missing someone who died, you might put on like a bit of, Living Years or something like that. Or, but
So you are familiar with the idea of people listening to music for pleasure? Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, I know for mood alteration. I mean, the fact that using music for mood alteration.
What
is like,
suits this moment?
Yeah. Should we have an idea from a Patreon supporter?
Oh, yes.
I think you'll like this one. Hello, Brady and Tim. Hope you are both well. My name is Murnaz, and I'm a biology PhD student in Los Angeles studying cancer genetics. Murnaz, I have learned, it's a woman's name, by the way. Mm-hmm. Specifically, I'm looking into how DNA repairs itself with the goal of developing methods to prevent cancer cells from repairing their DNA as a mechanism for killing tumour cells. I've been listening to the podcast from when the 3rd episode came out, and I've loved it since, though I only recently became a Patreon. Better late than never, as that's a famous quote we could put on the quote page.
That's very good, man. Well done.
Yeah. I just came up with that. Just came into my head then. Better late than never. But you have to pay me 20 cents every time you use that quote from now on.
You're like the Forrest Gump of quotes.
Yeah. I am always listening to podcasts when I am in the lab, and while I have not yet discovered something amazing, my lab mates always look at me a bit strangely when I laugh out loud while pipetting or counting cells. I was even listening to an episode of the Unmade podcast when I was driving over to my graduate school interview, where I subsequently got in, so the podcast must be lucky. Hey. Not just lucky, I think we are now entitled to some portion of your career earnings.
Indeed. This podcast is curing cancer.
Yeah.
Is that going too far?
No. I think, every little bit counts. That's another quote from me.
That's great. Hang on. There, let me write that down.
Every little bit. Recently, of course, I've been stuck at home a lot doing data analysis and other remote lab activities. It's been so nice to listen to podcasts while doing these repetitive tasks because it feels like there is someone else in the room to talk to, even if the conversation is very one-sided. Since I've been home, I've spent a lot of time looking at my walls, and that's where my podcast idea comes in. It would be called On My Wall, and would be an exploration into what people choose to decorate their walls with. For example, I haven't this is a pure coincidence. For example, I have a lot of inspirational quotes. Also, hand-drawn art and nature-inspired posters and my trusty periodic table. Pictures attached. Feel free to share. A lot of that stuff has been up since high school, so about 8 years, like my hand anatomy drawing, while some are more recent. My favourite quote on the wall is, "Seek first to understand, then to be understood," as I hope to be a professor one day. It's always interesting for me to see what other people have on their walls, from music posters to more traditional art pieces. Even if someone does not have anything on their walls, that would be a whole conversation figuring out their decision. Anyways, thank you for all the hard work putting the podcast together. I'm always looking forward to listening. Best wishes, Mernaz.
Well, what a remarkable person. Marvellous.
Curing cancer, and here we are.
Entertaining someone curing cancer.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Arguably a very important part of the process.
You must love talking about what people have on their wall and what's on your wall. What's on the wall you're looking at right now?
I'm in my office, which I've never, at the church, and I've never properly moved in here. I moved in thinking, okay, this needs a big declutter. And when I do that, then I'll bring things in properly. So even though I've been here for a few months, I'm looking at a picture I didn't choose to put up, which is a pencil sketch of the church, which looks like it's very old and been there forever. So I'll probably keep that.
That sounds nice, yeah.
It is nice.
Because your church is a very nice-looking building.
Yeah, lovely. Sort of 140 years old. So it's a nice picture. Next to that's a whiteboard with some of my writing on it, which is slightly less impressive.
A few quotes, a few Tim quotes. What's one thing you've written on there? Read one sentence or phrase that's on there, as long as it's not confidential or a password to your Wi-Fi.
Which I always put on the whiteboard. Well, the Wi-Fi I could, I guess. I've written strategy.
Strategy.
Yeah.
Don't read beyond that. We don't want to give away what your strategy is.
Oh, if only I had something written beyond that, man. That's as far as I got.
That's actually just a podcast idea you read up there.
That's a good idea. I should put them up there, and then I could just look up and look at them and read them.
That could be one of your quotes on the Patreon. Strategy. Tim
Strategy.
Hine, 2020. Yeah. Have a strategy.
Oh, no, I put it up there to remind myself not to have one. That's the no strategy. It's like no rules. What about you? What are you looking at? I think you're looking out the window if you're sitting where I remember you sitting.
I am looking out the window, but also I have, in my direct line of sight, I have two framed pictures. One is a very, very old map of South Australia.
Oh, lovely.
Including Adelaide. It's like an old, hand-drawn coloured map. It's very nice. And a picture of the Liverpool player Ian Rush scoring a goal in the 1989 FA Cup final for Liverpool to beat Everton 3-2, and it's signed by Ian Rush. And it was the first ever full game of football I watched, and it's what made me a Liverpool fan. And we are recording this just days after Liverpool finally won the Premier League.
Oh, yes. I thought my connection, I have a slight interest in the Premier League soccer. I enjoy it, but I don't follow it as passionately as you do. But I do, my interest, if I have a team, it's Liverpool. And that connection is from you. It's way back in, I remember going to your house and you having VHSs of different players, Ian Rush and John Barnes, and something called Golden Goals or something.
The World Cup Golden Goals. Yeah, that was a great tape.
Yeah. So I felt like I had I at least knew something about and the names of players of one of the teams. And so that was I've always kept a bit of an eye on it over the years. And then I met another friend who was really into Liverpool and another one. And so it's this seems to be the universe telling me something here. And so I've always kept a bit of an eye on them. But that's my link comes from your old VHS in your room.
Anyway, good idea. Stuff on people's walls. I imagine you'd take a lot of pride and time in deciding what to put on your walls and things like that. So you'd quite be into a podcast about that.
I do.
I bet you'd love to see what pop stars have on their walls and stuff like that.
I don't know. Well, maybe one or two. I don't know in particular.
You're telling me if I had a photograph of what's on Nick Cave's office wall, you wouldn't want to have a look?
No, what I'm saying is of some of them, and Nick Cave's one of them, but I don't care what lots of the others might.
No. Like busted.
I was going to say, it is interesting which pop stars, like you always imagine pop stars and rock stars just have those golden discs everywhere on their room. Like basically we're just putting themselves up on their own walls. And then you realise in the music industry how often, those things are made up. Every gold disc from every country at every place, and you'd be sort of like, all right, this is... You can't just plaster the wall with your own stuff. Surely at some stage you have to develop a taste in art and get something else than your own album cover.
If you could have any piece of art in the world on your wall, what would you choose?
Any piece of art. It'd be hard to go past Van Gogh's Starry Night. It would be hard to pass that up. Or a bus squat, I really like a really big, massive bus squat. But I'd like an original Andy Warhol soup can as well. We've got a photo of one of my daughters in front of a whole bunch of the originals from the Museum of Modern Art in New York. So I'd love to have a real one of those. When I say a real one, of course, he mass printed them in his factory and all that kind of stuff. That was all part of Andy Warhol's thing. But probably Starry Night. It's just, alive and moving, and it was so exciting to see it and show the kids and stuff. What about you? Is there a particular painting?
Well, definitely the Mona Lisa.
All right. Oh, well,
just because it would be pretty amazing to have someone come into your house and say, "What's that? Is that what's that? Oh, it's not a copy. That's the Mona Lisa." Sitting here in my office next to Ian Rush scoring the winning goal in the 1989 FA Cup final.
Do you know what would be really great is to have the Mona Lisa, just kind of leaning up against the wall and going, "Oh, I haven't got around to putting it up yet."
Yeah. Like hanging in the toilet. It would also be pretty impressive to have the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel moved and put into your house as your ceiling.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's right. The Last Supper is a wall.
But it's a really low ceiling, like in a really low room. like where you can bang your head on it and stuff.
With a fan.
With a fan. And you think it's cute to put the fan just where the two fingers are touching. Like that just seemed like the obvious place to put it.
It's like, put it here. And the electrician goes, "Oh, I guess this is the right spot."
Yeah.
You leave a note for the tradie. "I've marked where to put the fan," and he just looks up and goes, just sees God pointing to somewhere. "Oh, right. This must be it."
And God's eyes is where you put the motion detectors or something like.
Yeah, that would be impressive. I tell you, a coincidence. You're talking about you got a map. I didn't know you had a map of South Australia. I bought 2 maps of the Adelaide CBD, old ones. Actually, 3 really old one the other day, to get made up and put up in our new place. So that I kind of wanted to. I bought them because they kind of look nice and it's where we live. But also I wanted to teach the girls the different streets in the city, just to learn them. Seems like something that you just need to learn at some stage.
Yeah.
So I thought we'd get them and put them up near the dining table, and it's you look up and who can memorize what comes where, and as a fun little thing.
Cool.
Does yours have the plan and everything on there, or is it very, very early and there's just sketches?
No, mine's it's the whole state, so it's not like the city. You can't see details of the city.
Oh,
it's the whole state of South Australia.
Yep.
I have cool stuff. I mean, up in my office, behind me is the periodic table from the wall from our science class when we were at school, in high school, from Mr. Danaiski's wall, the actual periodic table from his office.
I mean, I spent very little time looking at that personally, but no. I know you did.
Next to that's a YouTube silver button. And then also I have on the wall a framed piece of paper with mathematics all over it, done by Ron Graham, who came up with Graham's number, which is, the biggest number ever that was in the Guinness Book of Records. And I got to meet him and he explained it to me on a piece of paper. And I've kept the piece of paper and had it framed. So I've got all sorts of...
Oh, that's cool.
Quite strange items on the walls.
Yeah, you've got cool memorabilia. I've got a picture on the floor beside me that I haven't put up yet because I'll put it up. It's still got those little postage little bits of cardboard that sit on the corners of something, when you have it posted.
Yeah, to protect it, yeah.
Yeah. And it's the poster from the Herald Sun for the premiership of Richmond Football Club last year, which arrived. And that's sitting here. Yeah. I've got one of those from a couple of years ago at my other office and one here.
All right, well, time's up. Have you done your girls' words this week?
I've done one. I haven't done the other one. We need to talk for just slightly longer.
Okay. So, How you going today, Tim?
I'm going rosy. Thank you.
Rosy. You're feeling just rosy.
I'm feeling rosy.
You could have done that. You could have just said, yeah, I'm feeling rosy.
Oh, well, I know I am. I didn't think... Oh, yeah, well, that's right.
In fact, that is what you said.
You asked me and I said it. And then you've said, oh, you could have just said it. I did say it. I did say it.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Well, I think I know what the second word was, but I don't know what the other word was that you dropped in sneakily.
Do you want to know what it is or shall we leave it?
I definitely want to know.
You should just end the podcast there.
Yeah, of course.